Okay, howdy Senate. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I now call this meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. on April 1st, 2020. We will begin with opening remarks. I want to note that although I see a number of you dressed appropriately, we're not going to be upholding dress code today. Chair Berger and I decided that we are glad you're with us and we want you to be able to speak regardless of your situation. And so we are just glad that you're joining us all. And with that, there is a number of things on the agenda. There's also a number of things that is going to happen in open session. So please bear with us. I think most should go very quickly considering it's a lot of first readings. So please, if at all possible, keep in mind that if it is a bill or an act, you can, unless it's a dire question, withhold questions for the committee process and then go through that before the next meeting, which we will hold on April 15th to do second reading and then passage. But with that, we'll go ahead and move into opening roll call, which as a reminder will be done electronically through our 70-second Google Drive. I will have you go to the e-meeting resources tab and fill out the Google form on that, and I'll give you just about a minute or so to do that, and there'll be another reminder towards the end of the meeting. Okay, we'll go ahead and move into a period of invocation and pledges of allegiance led by Senator Trosclair. Senator Trosclair, you are unmuted and ready to go whenever.
Howdy. Dear God, we ask that you be with us, there for us, as you were there for our ancestors, a pillar of our midst. Help us turn to you, O God, for guidance during these troubling times, and give us the strength in the weeks ahead. Help us reach out in love and compassion to one another to support those who are ill and unable to leave their homes, or who are struggling financially. Be with our doctors and caregivers, our nurses and scientists, as they work to develop a cure and care for those who are ill. Amen.
Thank you, Senator Trosclair. We will now move into a period of the mission statement and the Aggie Honor Code, led by our longest serving senator, Chair Banks. Chair Banks, you are unmuted.
All right. Howdy, y'all. The Texas A&M University Student Senate represents all students in order to enhance the Texas A&M experience within our university and communities through research, legislation, and advocacy in accordance with the core values of our institution. Aggies does not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do.
Thank you, Chair Banks. We'll now move into a period of the singing of the Spirit of Aggieland, which will be led from the computer of Chair Gupta. You are unmuted. Thank you, Chair Gupta. As a reminder, as we move into our period of open forum, these meetings are recorded on my computer and then uploaded to our website. and they have been done that for the past 2 meetings, and so they can be accessible through the 70-second tab on the website, and you can expect this one to be accessible starting tomorrow as well. Just a reminder on that note. Okay, we'll move into a period of open forum, and seeing that we had no submissions on our Google form, we will then move into a period of the approval of the 3/24/2020 meeting minutes. Do I have any objections to the minutes as written? If so, please type objection in the chat function. Okay, seeing no objection, the meeting minutes as written pass. We'll now move into a period of old business, beginning with SB 7213, the Emergency Online Meeting Act. I believe that Senator Jeffress was the primary author. You have been.
I think the funniest sound is like,
Jeffress, you have been unmuted.
I'm a good boy. I'm like if a golden retriever was a human.
Okay. Senator Jeffress, I'll give you another minute. If you want to present on this, please type that you're ready. If not, do we have anybody else who was on that piece of legislation that would like to step up for second reading? Okay, we'll go ahead and recognize Chair Rodriguez. Clarissa, I appreciate it. You have been unmuted.
Okay, howdy guys. So I'm going to do the second reading for the Emergency Online Meeting Act. And so therefore it reads, an act to allow online Senate meetings during emergency circumstances. This was originally introduced by Sam Jeffries and sponsored by myself and Zachary McHugh. So we have, whereas one, there needs to be provisions in the SGA code to allow online meetings and development days. And whereas two, the health and safety of all participants and observers of Senate meetings in the uttermost priority. Therefore, let it be enacted one. Title III, Chapter, Article will be amended by making the following addition. So we have here the emergency procedures of the online meetings. The first being, in the unlikely event Student Senate cannot physically meet without endangering the health or safety of the attendees or having a physical meeting is not logistically reasonable, these procedures shall be followed. We have second, 2/3 of the Internal Affairs Chairs Committee and the student body president must agree to hold online meetings of the Student Senate. Third reading, the online meeting shall be referred to as an emergency online meeting or EOM. Fourth, all rules and regulations governing an announced meeting shall be applied to an EOM. The only exemptions to this rule are as follows. One, any processes that cannot take place due to the online nature of the meeting. Two, the first order of business after opening roll call must be a 2/3 vote to continue the meeting. Fifth, SGA Judicial Court may order an injunction to overrule the decision by the EOMs and may decide to declare null and void all actions taken during the meetings. Sixth, the online platform for EOMs must be free and open access to the public. Seventh, a link to the online platform utilized for any EOM must be sent out to all student senators, executive cabinet, judicial court, and the student body population 24 hours before the beginning of the meeting. So it reads, and that was the provisions that we inputted. And we have here, let it be further enacted too. There must be a unanimous vote of the Internal Affairs Committee and 2/3 vote of the student body must agree to hold online development days of Student Senate. Therefore, let it be enacted 3, a copy of this bill be sent to Rules and Regulations Chair, Mr. Evan Berger, and Connor Hull, the Speaker Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you, Chair Rodriguez. We'll now move into a period of question and answer for 5 minutes. Again, if you have a question for our presenter, please type question in the chat function and I will unmute you. Do I see any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move forward into a period of debate, beginning with debate against. Beginning a debate against on SB 7213. Do I see any debate against this this act? If so, please type against. Okay, we'll begin by recognizing Chair Spur. You have 2.5 minutes.
Chair Spur, Constituency Affairs, I make a motion to add myself and anybody else who wishes to be listed as a sponsor to this piece of legislation. Eric, you're still muted.
Thank you. Do I see any seconds? Okay, seeing a number of seconds, we'll move forward. Do I see any, move forward into a period of voting on Chair Spur's motion to add herself and anyone else who would like to be added as a sponsor to this act. We'll do that by unanimous consent. If you object, please type object in the chat function. Okay, seeing no objection, Chair Spur, your motion passes unanimously. You still have the floor and debate against.
I yield my time, looks like, to the floor.
Okay, the floor has been yielded to, thank you. And with that, as a reminder, because the verbiage used by Chair Spur was herself and anybody else who'd like to be added, if you would like to be added, please go and do so through the 70 seconds drive through the form and make sure you use SB 7213 as a legislation. The floor has been yielded to, and with that, we'll move into a period of debate for this act. Do I see any debate for? If so, please type for in the chat function. Okay, seeing none, debate is one-sided and the period of debate has now closed. With that, we'll move into a period of voting by voice. And if you object to SB 7213, please type objection in the chat function. Okay, then seeing no objection, SB 7213, the Emergency Online Meeting Act, passes by unanimous consent. That now concludes our period of old business, and we'll move into a period of new business. And we will begin by starting with SB 7214, which is the Elections Reform Act. I believe our election commissioner is joining us during this meeting. Jacob, you have been unmuted. Howdy, Jacob, can you hear us? Okay, seeing technical difficulties, we will give Jacob a bit more time to join us. And if in the meantime you do, Jacob, please type so in the chat function or send me, oh, he says you can hear us. Let's try it one more time. Okay, you've been unmuted. Okay, we will give that a second again, like I said, and we will come back to SB 7214. But for now, let's go ahead and move forward with SB 7215, the Judicial Court Confirmation Reform Act. And for that, I will unmute Chief Justice Chopra, who joined me in writing this piece. Shefali, can you hear us?
Yes.
Wonderful. If you don't mind, Shefali, do you want to go ahead and begin on the reading of the legislation?
I'm fine with that, or if you want to take it off, I can follow you.
Okay, no worries at all. Let me pull it up real quick. Okay, so SB 7215, the Judicial Court Confirmation Reform Act reads, whereas one, the current judicial court confirmation process must go through the incoming student body president and newly elected session of the student senate, and whereas two, due to the time constraints at the end of each semester from Senate leadership elections in the confirmation cabinet, judicial court confirmations often do not get heard until the fall semester, and Texas A&M University Student Government Association Judicial Court is a co-equal branch of government that needs to be able to ensure that they have a working court going into each summer to properly prepare for cases that may arise in the fall semester. So let it therefore be enacted that Article IV, Section 2, subsection A, read that the term of each judicial court shall last as long as the incoming session of the student senate. The judicial court shall only be in session during the fall, spring, and summer academic semesters, and the judicial court may not hear cases or conduct any official business on university holidays. Let it therefore be enacted, too, that the outgoing student body president shall appoint the Chief Justice for their corresponding terms of the judicial court for the justices of the judicial court for that session, subject to confirmation, for which 2/3 vote of the student senate membership present and voting at a announced meeting. Excuse me. A confirmation for the new Chief Justice can be considered no earlier than after the first meeting in March during the outgoing session of the Student Senate, and no later than the final meeting of the outgoing Student Senate before a joint session. Any newly confirmed judicial court officer may not officially take over until all pending cases are closed from the previous term, and let it further be enacted. 3, read, should a seat on the judicial court be vacated, subject to confirmation by a 2/3 vote of the student senate membership present and voting at an announced meeting, let it therefore be enacted. 4, that before a judicial court justice nominee shall be permitted to come to the Senate floor for a vote on confirmation, they must participate in a confirmation hearing that shall be held by a judicial court justice confirmation subcommittee. The purpose of the confirmation hearing shall be to obtain a sense of the potential justice's knowledge of the Texas A&M Student Government Association Code and Senate statutes and other information pertinent to serving in the role on the judicial court. The judicial court justice confirmation process shall go as follows. The judicial court will solicit all applications for the associate justice positions beginning as soon as the first day of spring semester classes from the student body. After doing an initial screening, the Chief Justice shall forward a complete list of acceptable candidates to the student body president no later than the second Friday in February for an initial round of interviews to be conducted at their discretion. Upon completion of the executive branch interviews and selection, the student body president shall forward the names of the nominees to the judicial court confirmation subcommittee chair and vice chair. And upon receival of the names, the subcommittee must set a schedule following forming the committee and hearing process and inform the committee of this schedule. The judicial court justice confirmation subcommittee shall convene. This subcommittee shall be charged with holding a confirmation hearing to consider the qualifications of each judicial court nominee. The subcommittee shall consist of at least 2 members of the legislative and judicial branch with a minimum of 4 members and no more than 6 members. The judicial court justice confirmation subcommittee chair or vice chair shall set the date of the hearing. Senate body set the date of the hearing. The Senate body, executive branch, and the judicial court nominee shall participate in the confirmation hearing. Shall be notified as soon as a hearing date is set. The judicial court confirmation subcommittee chair or vice chair shall forward the names or judicial court justice nominees to the Speaker of the Student Senate 3 days before the last regular General Assembly meeting of the outgoing session before the joint session to be included on the agenda. If this timeline is not met, all proceedings will carry over to the incoming session. The candidate list from the Judicial Court Justice Confirmation Subcommittee shall be made available to the incoming session for review. This list cannot be expanded upon or shortened. The candidates must be put up for confirmation before the Senate immediately. Nominees must be confirmed by 2/3 vote of the Student Senate membership present and voting at an announced meeting of the incoming session. If a nominee does not get confirmed in the incoming the incoming session must put up a nominee for consideration from the original list of applicants sent to the student body president and chief justice. Let it be further enacted, 5, that a copy of this bill be sent to Chief Justice Chopra and Evan Berger, Rules and Regulations Chair. Okay, that was a lot. Will Shafali, would you like to add anything?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay, wonderful. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into a period of question and answer. If you have a question, please type question in the chat function. We'll begin with Senator Cabrera. You have been unmuted.
Senator Cabrera, Liberal Caucus. Just have a question about the whole thing about confirming the spring semester rather than fall. do you think that there is going to be, has there been a previous case or situation in which judges not being confirmed earlier on have affected a case or something going on that required the judicial court?
Yeah, I'll address it first. Thank you, David. And then Shafali, you can add anything. So they are supposed to be all confirmed before the summer. So they're supposed to be confirmed before the end of the spring semester, recognizing that the incoming session has to do executive cabinet confirmations as well as leadership position elections. That doesn't always get done. And I know that, for example, this last year that did not get accomplished. And so we had a number of associate justices that had to be confirmed in the fall semester. And that does pose a risk if it's not done before fall elections and something comes up and they don't have a court to hold or to hear a case. There's also potential to have something come up in the summer and then they cannot hear a case either. So Shafali, if you'd like to add anything.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Eric said. I think there's a lot of factors that play into having a full court on time, not only when it comes to fulfilling our duties as a court, but also organizationally speaking as well. To directly answer your question, Senator Cabrera, I think as long as I've been on the court, there hasn't been an issue where not having a court by the start of the fall that has really dampened our progress as a court or our ability to hear a case, but we don't want that to become an issue. It's good that it hasn't happened yet, but I would say it's because we got lucky because I've been on the court for 2 years now, and every fall we've had the potential for a case during freshman elections, and they haven't come through to a full hearing, so we didn't necessarily need a court, but we did need a court to vote on that. And if that doesn't happen, then not only do we lose the credibility of our organization, but SGA also loses its credibility if we don't have a body to hear cases. And then to Eric's point, if we don't have a court before the fall begins, then we also don't have the summer to do anything. And that actually, I'm experiencing this firsthand this past fall. That pushes our timeline back a lot as well, because to hear a case, not only do we need justices, but we need judicial advocate generals as well. And judicial advocate generals are selected in the fall, and we cannot select them until we have a full court, or at least a majority of the courts to go through the selections process. And so not having the justices confirmed pushed back our selection process for the JAGs. And if, let's say a case does come through in the fall for freshman elections and our JAGs are not trained properly because we haven't had the time to train them before freshman elections, well, then that also tarnishes the reputation of the court as well. And so there's a lot of factors that kind of play into why we're setting the timeline as it is. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. And Senator Cabrera, you're free to follow up.
Yeah, but I know, like, trying to criticize the decision or something. Just I was just trying to figure out why the confirmation happened in the fall. I thought it was like a law or something that required that to happen. I mean, I have been part of a judicial case before, so I know that requiring judges is really important.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cabrera. Do you have any further questions for our presenters with 2.5 minutes remaining? Okay, we will recognize, here we go. Senator Ahmed, you have been unmuted.
Howdy. So I just had a quick question about this legislation. So since it's an act, we won't be voting on it until next meeting. And then our next meeting after that for 72nd would be our joint session meeting. And obviously in this legislation, it says that the chief justices would be voted on in the outcoming sessions prior to their joint meetings. So if it does get passed, would it only apply for the following year? And for right now, the incoming session will still be voting on the chief justices?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's absolutely correct. So this would really go into effect for the 72nd or the outgoing 73rd. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do you have any further questions? All right. Seeing none, as was mentioned, this will now be headed towards committee and it will be sent to the Rules and Regulations Committee. Thank you, guys. Okay. We will now recognize Chair Berger for a quick note, which I imagine is about not having to read the entirety of legislation, which I have already broken. You've been.
Burger Rules and Regulations. Howdy, Senate. Just real quick to clarify, for those of you who will continue to read legislation throughout the rest of the night, those of you who are presenting bills or acts, since there are 2 readings, the first reading is just generally supposed to be a summary. That way, second reading can be the full reading. You're only supposed to do 1 full reading. And we prefer to do the full reading after it's already been through committee. That way, if anything gets changed up between its presentation and the meeting where it gets voted on, that's when we'd like to hear it line by line. So let's try and save that for the next meeting. And let's try and be mindful of that for the rest of this meeting. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair Berger. Evan said it very nicely, but I'll reiterate, do as we say, not as I clearly did. So we'll now go back into the period of the reading of SB 7214. I believe the election commissioner is back with us. Jacob, you've been unmuted.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. I'm going to give a quick summary. So the first thing is we cut over 1,000 words out of the original rules, which is pretty exciting. Got it down a few pages. The second thing is the timeline would change. So there'd be 2 weeks for filing. There'd be 1 week for pre-campaigning, where you can talk to orgs. And then there's a week of general campaigning and 2 days of voting. Finance reports. We're changing the 3 places on the fair market value form to 2 mandatory places, hopefully. Write-in winners, they will need 5 votes to win. And then we're also moving the expense report deadline to Wednesday night instead of Thursday night. So that does have quite an impact on expenses. You wouldn't be allowed to expend anything after that timeline. And also with violations, you have to report them within 24 hours of the violation. And then no violations can be submitted after results, which is Friday at 7. So all violations must be submitted before Friday at 7. The election commission would post the expense reports Thursday night at 7. So you have 24 hours for those as you do normally. Other than that, we defined what a definition of a receipt is. We changed instances of Bryan College Station area to Brazos County. We added what a campaign supporter was, and we are hoping to allow live animals for election campaigns. So yeah, there's a few other minor things in there, but that's most of it. Anyone have questions about it? I could try to answer real quick.
Okay. Thank you, Jacob. We will now move into a period of question and answer, beginning with Senator Cabrera. You have been unmuted.
I think that Chair Sport was fair, but okay. I have a question about this whole idea. I have a question about the whole thing about reducing the day of the finance report. I mean, why is it done on Wednesday instead of Thursday? I mean, I would think that if there had change happening, it would be more like extending a day or something like that, because some people while campaigning get kind of busy doing their own campaigning and figuring out what to report that they sometimes don't have the time to do it the day before the finance report. So yeah, that was my question about.
If they would be due on Thursday, the election commission, we normally stay up all night working on those, so we wouldn't be able to post them until Friday, which would give people less than 24 hours to report those. And so we want to leave at least 24 hours to give campaigns to look at expense reports and report violations on that. So if they're due on Thursday, they wouldn't be able to do that. It just wouldn't make sense. So that's why we had to push those reports to Wednesday.
Perfect. Thank you. With 4 minutes remaining, Chair Spur, apologies for missing that.
No worries. Howdy, Chair Spur, Constituency Affairs. Jacob, I was wondering what senators you reached out to and sought counsel from on this piece of legislation, other than our Rules and Regulations Chair and Operations Director.
Other than Evan, yeah, I can pull it up. Give me 1 sec. Here we are. I emailed quite a few, actually. I emailed Michaela, Megan Hine, Zachary McHugh, Hunter Martin, Erica Paul, Julie Garcia, Suyash Gupta, and Brogan Gunya. So I just reached out to those because I've met them before and I had personal relations with them. I want to get their input on it. But those are the senators I reached out to.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Spur. Do you have any further questions for our presenter? Okay, we will recognize Senator Marufo with 2 or 3 minutes remaining. Excuse me. You muted.
Permission to or Senator Marufo, Liberal Arts Caucus, permission to ask a question before the first question? Permission to
Briefly preface, go ahead.
Yes. Did I hear you correctly that a goal would be to try to incorporate animals into campaigning? Or bring back animals?
There's a rule that says no live animals can be used, and
Mhm.
we want to change that to where only Revly cannot be used for campaigning. So if someone has a pet dog or something, they'd be willing to use that in a campaign.
Okay. Then my question would be for what purpose would that serve to use animals?
It allows for creativity of campaigning. On the commission, we feel like campaigning has gotten pretty stale over the past few years with so many rules you have to follow. And so we're hoping that maybe with some more energy in people's campaigns, that'll bring in more voters. Really, it's not going to make that rule, won't make a huge difference itself, but it's the fact that we're opening up for more creative campaigns. That's a big part. And hopefully by reducing the words by over 1,000, it's going to be easier for a candidate to follow these rules.
Perfect. Thank you. We have a minute and a half remaining. Do I see any further questions for our presenter? Okay, seeing none, that will conclude our period of question and answer, and we will send this to the Rules and Regulations Committee. Thank you so much, Jacob.
Yep.
And then as a quick reminder before we move on to our next piece, it is a great opportunity between this meeting and the next meeting, and I'm going to ask Chair Berger to touch on that because many things are going to his committee, but to make sure that we are getting questions addressed and having those conversations before they go up for second reading if we see anything that either strikes your interest or worries you. So make sure that you're taking advantage of the time between each meeting. We'll now move into the reading of SB 7216, which is the Finance Reform Act. I believe Chair Newman was the primary on this one. Chair Newman, you have been unmuted.
All right. Howdy, Senate. Hope y'all are doing well, staying safe tonight, and doing your part flattening the curve. I'll just give a brief summary of this. And Eric, if you want to unmute John Carter Teague as well. We collaborated on this bill, or this act, sorry. So John Carter is the chair of the Finance Committee for the 73rd session. And so we've been engaging in talks about how we can better the Finance Committee in the future. So the general gist of this act is it gives more guidance to keep Finance Committee members more involved over the entire year, over the session, because I'm sure all of you can remember that the definition of the Finance Committee was, you've got hard work for 2 weeks at the very beginning, and then after that, you're done. This keeps Finance Committee members as well as the chair accountable to be present year round. It also changes some requirements as far as some, requirements for the Internal Affairs Committee serving as ex officio members for allocations hearings. It changes that number to no more than 2 members of the IA committee, and it gives guidance on each appropriation hearing being 10 minutes long, 10 minutes of questioning, and then deliberation after the hearings, because there is nothing about that in the code. So that's all I have. John Carter, if you have anything, go ahead.
So my name is Senator John Carter Teague, Chair of the Finance Committee for the 73rd session. I think if I could nail down one thing that this does is just clarification. We're not changing a whole lot as far as the day-to-day look of this. It's clarifying it and improving in some small ways in order to improve the Finance Committee and allocation process.
All right. With that, we'll take any questions any of you have.
Perfect. Thank you both. We'll now open it up to a period of question and answer for 5 minutes. Do you have any questions for either of our presenters? Okay, perfect. Seeing none, that will conclude our period of question and answer. This act will also be sent to the Rules and Regulations Committee. Thank you both. Perfect. All righty. We will now move into the reading of SR 7255, the Mental Health Resolution during COVID-19, Resources during COVID-19 Resolution. Excuse me. All right. I believe I want to say Senator Hine was the primary on this, but this might be mistaken. Senator Hine, were you the primary on this piece?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. You have 10 minutes starting at Howdy.
Alrighty, howdy, Senate. So this is a resolution recognizing virtual mental health resources during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas one, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in many Texas A&M students returning home to complete the remainder of the semester through online classes. And whereas two, classroom learning gave students the opportunity for human interaction, which is not possible through online classes. And whereas three, many student organizations where students have found many healthy outlets from classwork and worries are unable to meet and carry out social events. And whereas four, due to social distancing guidelines, face-to-face interactions with professors, counselors, and advisors have been suspended until further notice. And whereas five, with limited social interactions, students are faced with many mental and emotional struggles and should be aware of services to aid them in these difficult times. Therefore, let it be resolved. One, the 72nd session of the Texas A&M Student Senate recognizes and commends services such as Helpline and counseling and psychological services for overcoming the extenuating circumstances at hand and continuing to provide help to those who may need their resources during this difficult time. And let it be further resolved. Two, Samvello, an app designed to provide an on-demand help to those who struggle with stress, anxiety, and depression, is offering a free subscription throughout the period of the COVID-19 crisis. And let it be further resolved. Three, another useful resource to consider using is the free Science of Wellbeing by Yale University offered on Coursera. The course will engage in a series of challenges designed to increase your own happiness and build more productive habits. And then let it be further resolved, a copy of this resolution be sent to President Michael K. Young, John Sharp, Dr. Daniel Pugh, CAPS, Helpline, and the Battalion. This resolution is basically just outlining a bunch of resources that students can reach out to during this global crisis and help with online classes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Senator Hine. We'll now move into a period of question and answer for 5 minutes. Do you have any questions for our presenter? Okay, we'll begin by recognizing Senator Cabrera. You have been unmuted.
Senator Cabrera, Liberal Caucus. Just a question. Do you know exactly how the mental health services work during the situation that they cannot go in? One cannot go in person, but have to go through online. What do they do? Like, do they send you an email? Do they send you do they meet through Zoom, or do you have any information about that?
So CAPS basically took the students that they were visiting before the crisis, and A&M basically suspending face-to-face interactions, and they emailed those students privately and started setting up Zoom meetings and phone calls. But if you go onto their website, they do provide the phone number to Helpline, as well as a place to sign up to see a CAPS counselor through Zoom or a phone call.
Okay, well, thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator Cabrera. Do you have any further questions for our presenter? All right, seeing none, that will conclude our period of question and answer. Thank you so much, Senator Hine.
Thank you.
We will now move into a period of debate on SR 7255, beginning with debate against. Do I see any debate against this resolution? Okay, we will recognize Senator Marufo. You have been unmuted and have 2.5 minutes, starting at howdy. There you are.
Okay. I'm trying to remember how Chair Spur said it. I have a motion to add myself and anyone else. Can I even do that right now? Anyways, to add myself and anyone else who would like to be added to this resolution.
Okay. Yes, you may do that right now in the period of debate against, and we see a number of seconds. So Senator Marufo's motion to add herself and anybody else who would like to be added as a sponsor will now be voted on. And if we have any objections, please type objection in the chat function. Okay, seeing no objection, Senator Marufo, your motion passes by unanimous consent. You still have the floor in debate against.
Oh, I yield my time to the floor.
Okay, thank you. The floor has been yielded to, and with that, we'll move into a period of debate for the resolution as a whole. Do I see any debate for? Okay, wonderful. Seeing no debate for, debate is one-sided and the period of debate has now closed. Move into a period of voting by unanimous consent. And again, if you object to SR 7255, the mental health resources during COVID-19 resolution, please type objection in the chat function. Okay, seeing no objection, SR 7255 passes by unanimous consent. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Hine. We'll now move into a period of the reading of SR 7256, which is the Women's History Month resolution. Chair Spur, I believe you were the primary on this. You have been unmuted.
Howdy, Chair Spur, Constituency Affairs. So most of the ladies in this room know about this resolution. This is a resolution honoring Women's History Month, which was the month of March. It was written by myself, Chair McGill, and Senator Ahmed. And my goal was to get every female senator to sponsor this resolution as a show of unity as women. I think almost everybody made it on there, so super happy about that. But I'm gonna go ahead and read through it. Whereas March is Women's History Month, set in place in 1987 by Public Law 100-9, and since 1995, presidents have issued annual proclamations to declare Women's History Month as an annual celebration in the month of March, and Women's History Month is now a worldwide celebration with International Women's Day celebrated on March 8th. And the 72nd session of Student Senate began with 31 women elected to the session, with 3 women serving in chair positions. And the Texas A&M student body is 47.8% female as of 2018, and the Texas A&M faculty is composed of 50.7% female as of 2018. Therefore, let it be resolved, we as the 72nd session of the Texas A&M Student Senate recognize March as Women's History Month, and in our recognition, we thank the women that have empowered us and shaped us to carry us to the places we are today. And we wish to show our gratitude for the women who work to make our Senate the best it can be. Let a copy of this resolution be sent to President Michael Young, Dr. Fierke, Dr. Pugh, Dr. Dobianski, Amy Lloyd, Cindy Smith, Dr. Means Coleman, Dr. Driver, Dr. Gravel, and Jen Boyle. I would like to say there were a few of you that sponsored this piece after it got put on the agenda, and so I don't know if it's off of what's on the Google Drive or what's on the Word copy, but the last 3 of you that were on there, Erica, Jocelyn, and Sydney Ramon, I don't know if you guys need to re-sponsor. That's more of a question for Eric, but that's about it. I yield my time to the floor.
Okay, thank you, Chair Spur. The answer is no, they do not, as long as it was intended on the original. And so double check that, but if not, they are welcome on your copy to be on there. And then with that, we'll move into a period of question and answer. If you have a question for our presenter, please type question in the chat function. Okay, we will again begin with Senator Cabrera. Senator Cabrera, you have been unmuted.
Okay, Senator Cabrera, Liberal Arts Caucus. Just curious about something. I think it's great, this idea about the whole woman resolution, since I think that women are great and they are really good for the student senate and that kind of stuff, because I love women. But why was this done by the beginning of April? Why couldn't it be done like on March, since it was the month that the resolution would make sense to be done?
Yeah, that's a great question. Today is April 1st, so I'm sorry I'm a little behind the deadline. I just wanted the piece to be concise and factual as possible. As you can see, I've included endnotes and footnotes with the links to where I have my information, and that just wasn't ready on the 24th. I was also preparing for the 73rd session meeting on the 25th, so I wasn't able to complete that, but hopefully you'll forgive me for my tardiness in putting it up in April.
Awesome, thank you. Do you have any further questions? And David forgives you, it looks like. Do you have any further questions? Presenter? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Chair Spur. We will now move into a period of debate on SR 7256, beginning with debate against. Do I see any debate against? And if so, please type against in the chat function. Okay, we will begin by recognizing Senator Feldman. You have been unmuted. Senator Feldman. Okay, Senator Feldman, can you hear us? If not, we'll go ahead and move forward. Okay. Fortunately, you cannot hear Senator Feldman. With that, do we have any other, anyone else wanting to debate against SR 7256? Okay, seeing none, that will conclude the period of debate, and it has now closed. We'll move into a period of voting via unanimous consent. As we did with the previous piece, if you have an objection to SR 7256, the Women's History Month resolution, please type objection in the chat function. Okay, seeing no objection, SR 7256, the Women's History Month resolution, passes via unanimous consent. Thank you, Chair Spur. Alrighty, well, that will conclude our period of new business, and we'll move into a period of open session. And I know we have a number of pieces that we are going to aim to get through on this, so I've asked that you all bear with us. Most of this is first reading, so it should not take too long. However, there is a number of important pieces that we do need to get through tonight in order to have them go for second reading next week. And so due to some pieces being mandated by code, I will recognize those first. And I would refer most of you to our open session folder in the 72nd Google Drive under legislation tab. And I will begin this period by recognizing myself for a piece entitled The Reapportionment of Senate Caucuses Act. Do I see any seconds? Okay, wonderful. Seeing a number of seconds, I will now recognize myself to for 10 minutes to present on what will be SB 7217, the Reapportionment of Senate Caucuses Act. Again, if you'd like to follow along as I do so, please go to the open session folder on the Google Drive. Okay, so this is a traditional piece that we are mandated to do at the end of every single session by code, which is to look at the alignment of our current seats versus the population of students that we have had, or the change in population that we have had. And so it reads just as the previous did, and it reads just as it is in the code. However, I do want to point out that there is one key difference, and that is that the recommendation is, as you can see, and let it therefore, or let it be enacted. One, that the Senate membership shall consist of 70 senators elected by plurality vote in the following representational guidelines. As you all know, that is down from the 80 that we have in this session and that the 73rd session has as well. Now this will apply to next spring's elections if passed. So this would not apply to the 73rd session, but the 74th. And so I want to note before we go into a period of questions that we have long talked about the idea of decreasing the size of the body for no other reason, just to ensure that we can improve retention and involvement here. And so what we did and what we looked at was keeping and ensuring people can be represented proportionately the same way and not disproportionately moving anyone by removing any seats. And so what it looks like is continuing to have 39 college representation seats, and they actually are exactly the same as was listed on the current layout, and that is in alignment with our current population, which is 67,201 if you include the Health Science Center. If you include just Texas A&M, it is, I believe, 64,300. And so those seats are as they were, and that is via the population numbers. The key difference for the second half is that to get to the 70 number from 80, it is 12.5% decrease in seats overall. And to do that, to ensure that we could do it, to not have anyone disproportionately affected via representation, we elected to cut down both on-campus and off-campus seats by 25% to get to that 12.5% overall mark. And what that looks like is rather than 7 on-campus seats, it's 5 on-campus seats, and then rather than 32 off-campus seats, it's 24 off-campus seats. So it does obviously have a bigger number in off-campus, but it is the same proportion of 25%, just like the on-campus seat was. And so with that, we believe that with this being held, the seats that remain competitive to win, which is traditionally a lot of the college representation seats, will still be that way. And the seats that are not so much in terms of on-campus or otherwise will have the ability to continue to improve. And so that is the ultimate reason to bring it down to 70. Now, discussion obviously will still be had before the second reading on April 15th. But I will note that there was a lot of people wanting more drastic change, some bringing it down to 50 members, and we don't have the data to support that in the terms of would that improve retention or involvement. However, I do think we have enough experience to believe that decreasing at least by 12.5% would improve retention and involvement. So that was the underlying thought process here. And so that's all I have for the first reading presentation. I'll now open it up to questions, and I believe we'll begin. So we'll begin a period of question and answer for 5 minutes, and I believe we will begin with Chair Banks. You have been unmuted.
Howdy. So have you thought about the impact that reducing the number of seats in the Senate will have on, keeping out people who want to run for Senate, who may very well be, very good senators. So, the idea behind retention is, I guess you reduce it to 70, but those 70 are going to care more, ideally, and then not be as prone to absencing out. But, I can think of a lot of senators who have been really productive senators who were either like a write-in, which only happens if the number of seats is large enough, or didn't get very many votes. Both myself and Chair Rebelioso actually at various points have been write-in candidates. So how do you think that's going to, affect those people who would only have gotten in? How do you think this is going to affect Senate if we're, keeping out potentially great senators?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think you do have that risk with anything. Now, I think yeah, you are a writing candidate, and it has worked out fantastic. And I get private message, excuse me. And so that's a good point. I think you also look at the fact that there's no way to tell, or there's no rhyme or reason any year in how it lays out. And so if you look at a past election, whether this year, the year before that, which are the ones I'm familiar with, there were some years that writing candidates won for off-campus. There were some years they didn't. This past year and the past 2 years, really on campus has been a large opportunity for write-ins. And so it isn't necessarily taking away directly from that. You still could have the potential for write-ins, and I think that we would probably expect still write-ins, whether it's from the 9 seats in engineering caucus, which hasn't changed. And if those don't have, enough people that file or win or don't get disqualified, then you still could have write-ins there. And so, I think it's important to realize the write-in process is still important and vital, and they're changing that per elections possibly, but there's still the potential to have those people because I always say, and I think you're right, regardless of how you get to the room, I think that you're here for a reason. And so that's not the intention at all. But I appreciate the question.
Permission to follow up?
I'll put you at the end. We have 2.5 minutes remaining, and we have a few more. Thank you, Chair Banks. Okay. All right. With 2.5 minutes remaining, I will recognize Senator Feldman.
Senator Feldman, Off-Campus Caucus. Just something that I would question about, and maybe you guys did a little more research into this, is something I'm a little worried about is, you have a lot of senators that come in and, maybe they didn't get as many votes, but I think what's so great about this body is you have so many different voices and so many different people from different backgrounds and different opinions. And I worry that by limiting the number down to 70, you may be losing some of those voices. You may not be. I don't specifically know, but I think that's a big point of worry from just something I'm thinking of is you may lose some of those voices that are so impactful to Senate. Just as Chair Banks said, what is some of the data come up on that based on especially, I guess, writing candidates as well?
Yeah, sure. No, I think, thank you. Thank you, Josh. That's another good point. But I also think that can be said for any number that you want anybody to be. If that's the case, then why are we not at 100 people or 150 people? That can always be said. And I think that it is a good point. But overall, I think that you have to weigh the pros and the cons and do a cost benefit analysis. And that's how we came to this number. Again, I will say that there were a lot of calls really to bring it down to 50 was a specific number that I heard many, many times, including very recently going over this. And I think that's why, because we agreed with you and Tate as well, that we didn't do something as drastic. But again, then the question could be why not 100 or 120? But I understand the point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll recognize Senator McHugh. Apologies, I missed you there.
No, that's okay. Senator McHugh, Off-Campus Caucus. I just wanted to kind of inquire, and you may have already said this, but I just wanted to inquire into the thought process behind switching seats specifically from Off-Campus Caucus instead of pulling them from anywhere else, and why specifically that caucus took the hardest hit as opposed to anything else.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you're
quick, and I'll take a motion from Senator Olag. You have been unmuted.
Senator Olag, On-Campus Caucus. I move to increase the time for question and answers by 5 minutes.
Okay. Seeing a number of seconds, we will now move into a period of voting. Do I see any objections to Senator Olag's motion to extend the period of question and answer by 5 minutes? Okay, seeing none, then Senator Olag's motion passes by unanimous consent. Thank you. Okay, and I will go ahead and move back to your question, Senator McHugh. Make sure I unmute you. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so your question, again, it wasn't disproportionate. It looks to be because I believe it was 8 seats, which is a large number. But again, the overall decrease is 12.5%. That's how you get from the 80 to the 70 number. And the entirety of that 12.5% decrease is split evenly from on-campus and off-campus. So on-campus and off-campus both took a 25% hit, but because on-campus started at 7 and goes to 5, it looks much smaller than starting at 32 and going to 24.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. I'll now recognize Senator Ahmed. Let me go ahead and unmute you. You have been unmuted. Oh, wait. There you go. Go ahead.
Howdy, Senate. Senator Ahmed, On-Campus Caucus. So I was just wondering, with the what's it called? The reproportionment? Yeah. So when that happens, is it actually based on like the percentages of like off-campus students and on-campus students and making it proportional to that? Or is it really just wanting to decrease the number of people in Senate to increase engagement? Or like, do you guys have like data showing like the percentage of off-campus students or on-campus students has decreased since the previous years?
Yeah, so the numbers themselves in terms of the numbers to get to the 80 is 39 from colleges. Then you have 39 from on-campus, off-campus, and you reserve the 2 for the freshman seat. So that's how the numbers are always traditionally. Now the number, again, every number to decrease is a bit arbitrary, and it is under the belief that it would increase retention and involvement. However, it isn't. The idea is not to look at, okay, are we going to disproportionately affect people living off campus? I live off campus. I'm sitting in my house in College Station right now. I have served 3 terms as an off-campus senator. Excuse me. So, I understand that. But the intention is, if you look at it, everybody still has the opportunity, just as you have in an 80-person body, to be represented. Why is that? Because if you live on campus, or in the Corps of Cadets, you are still in a college. And so you can be in Mays Business School and off campus, and that still exists. So your representation is still the same. It just does decrease the size, and it does come from the on-campus, off-campus piece, because traditionally, if we want to increase retention and involvement, we do see that on most years, in my experience, that the off-campus seats and on-campus seats are the ones that have the hardest time attracting people to run at the levels that they need. And 36 seats, which when I first joined Senate, off-campus was 36 seats, not 32. And so, you know, that's a big number to find 36 people that really want to be engaged. And it's not anything against off-campus people. Again, I've done 3 sessions, but that's the reason behind it. But I still want to make sure we're pointing out that everybody still has the opportunity to be represented twice. And that's still representational. All right, thank you. Okay, with 3 minutes remaining, I will recognize Senator Pauls. You have been unmuted.
Senator Pauls off campus.
I'm so sorry. So I was just wondering, I saw that in the bill, every single other caucus like had the previous number. Is there a way you can like add the previous number for the off campus, just so we can get that like idea of how many seats we're actually missing? Like, was there a reason, or was it just?
So I'm not sure I'm understanding
He's
your
like
question
muted.
exactly.
Like off of your computer. But he is.
Can you hear me?
Oh wait. Oh yeah, now I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, wonderful. I'm not sure I'm understanding your question exactly. So I will answer, and if it's incorrect, please ask for a follow-up. So every number in the first 39 seats, which is from the college portion of it, is the same, but it is still, I did the math, and it's still percentage-wise processed the same way. And so it's from the, again, there's 64,300 students under, not completely on this campus as of fall 2019, and they updated every fall. So that's the updated numbers we had. And there's, I believe I put in here, including Health Science Center, we have 67,201. And so that's where those numbers come from. And so for your latter question, I think the number previously, so that's why those numbers are the same, because the math still works out that way. And some of it is funky because you do have to have 2 seats per caucus per code. So even if the College of Geosciences, for example, doesn't have enough student population to warrant 2 seats, you have to give them 2 seats per the code. And so that's a reason why it's a little bit wonky too. But as for the off-campus portion, it was 32 seats, now 24. So the previous number was 32.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I'll now recognize Senator Trosclair with a minute and a half remaining. Oh, hang on one second. Okay, Senator Trosclair, go ahead.
Thank you. Permission to preface briefly, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
One of the concerns I have about reducing the number of senators in total is that, at least from my experience of talking to a lot of different students on this campus, many of them feel this body is in many cases out of touch in some capacity. And my fear is I'm worried about the perception. Do you think the perception of this body would look even more out of touch, or do you think this would be a better way we can reach out to students? And that's not a dig at anybody in this room. I'm just kind of wondering how this legislation might affect that perception, because it is out there.
Sure. No, it's always something we have to deal with, and it's an important point. And so to address it directly, I think that the number of people in any body, or if you look at a class, or if you look at a program on campus, whatever it is, does not define how it looks from the outside necessarily. It's the people inside it that go the extra mile to attract people's opinion, to look for student input and seek that out. And so whether that's 80 people or 70 people doing that, you do have to look at the fact that there's going to be a portion, like you mentioned, from every session that is a bit disengaged, that will not necessarily, seek out that input. And so that's a bit of a sunk cost. But I think if you look at it, I feel very strongly that a 70 number will, if attracting the right people, which we should all seek to do, and we should all seek to be engaged, is no less powerful than the 80. And I don't think that the intent certainly is not to show a different thing to the student body. If anything, the intent is to show we need to take ourselves more seriously, and that's what we want to do. So if anything, we agree with students in that sense. Thank you, Chandler. Sorry, I muted you there. But okay, I'll go ahead and recognize Senator Cabrera. Chair Banks, I see you again. I'll leave you at the end just because we do have to allow people that have not asked quite yet. Senator Cabrera, go ahead with 1 minute remaining.
Well, I'm kind of skeptical about the whole idea about the number 70. I mean, like you said, that why does it really matter if it's 80 or 70? I mean, why does it really matter that it could be maybe a lower number? Why couldn't it be 60?
Mm-hmm.
Or even why not only 2 members for each part of in the student senate, in the college, or just even off campus and on campus, like you said that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Before I address that, we have about a minute remaining and 2 more questions. And so I want to encourage you not to extend the period of question and answer. If you do, I'm happy to keep answering questions. But as Senator Morgan said, we do have the period between this and second reading to talk about all of this important questions. But I will recognize Chair Spur because I do see a motion, and we do need to recognize that first. Okay, Chair Spur, you've been unmuted.
Can I point of information before I motion?
Go ahead.
Chair Spur, Constituency Affairs, will we be able to ask questions when we come back through for a second reading?
Absolutely. Before debate, yes.
Okay. I'd still like to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Can we extend the period of questioning by 1 minute and 30 seconds?
Okay. Do I see any seconds for Chair Spur's motion? Okay, a number of seconds. Do you see any objections to the motion? Okay, seeing no objections, that passes unanimously. Chair Spur, thank you. Okay, we will go back and Senator Cabrera, I will address your question before we move on. Give me 1 moment. Okay, wonderful. So we have 3.5 minutes remaining. So Senator Cabrera, to your question specifically, you're absolutely right. Like I mentioned, the number from a lot of other people wanted to be quite lower, and it's all, like you mentioned, arbitrary. I think that the 70 number was a happy medium. I have spent, this is my 3rd year in this body. I love it. My intention is to do nothing but strengthen it. And so a drastic move, which would be decreasing Senate by 35% if you go to the 50 number, with no data to support that, was a bit drastic, and I was not willing to do that or put my weight behind that. But I do think that there is, from my experience, this would improve Senate. And that's the only reason that I decided to go forward with the 12.5% decrease. I hope that answers your question. We will now recognize Chair Spur. You have.
Hey. I apologize for my family that you can see in the mirror. Chair Spur, Constituency Affairs. My question is, why are we only reapportioning the college caucuses, the residency caucuses, and not reapportioning all caucuses across the board? Because I think if we're going to reapportion in one area, we should do it all across the board or not at all.
Yeah, good question. So they all have been. Like I mentioned earlier, the numbers are exactly the same in terms of how they fit into the 39 for the college representation. However, those is because although we have seen an increase of enrollment throughout our time here, it has not been drastic enough to change the percentages that would be, warrant another seat. However, the reasoning that they came from off-campus, on-campus again was because regardless of where you take it from, they do still have the opportunity to be represented twice, right? So whatever college you're in, wherever you live, that still exists. But I think the reason is because, it's because to increase retention and involvement, and wherever we've seen that lack in terms of elections is from those caucuses. And so that was the reasoning behind it. It does look like it disproportionately attracts that, but ultimately it's the same percentage on both. Just one is more drastic because of a number, because of how large it started. Okay, I'll then recognize, with 1 minute remaining, we have our final question from Chair Banks. All right, you've been unmuted.
So if it seems to me that most of the rationale behind lowering the number of senators is that there are a lot of write-ins, which indicates kind of an overabundance of seats. And then a lot of those are concentrated in the housing ones, specifically in on-campus and off-campus housing. Do you think maybe an alternate solution to that would be reapportioning it to where the collegiate seats have a higher percentage than the housing seats? So for example, you lower the number of seats in the Senate based off housing, and you give some of those seats to the colleges, because by and large, the colleges are a lot more contested than the housing seats. You have caucuses like liberal arts, like engineering, like ag, that routinely have people running who don't make it. So, if you reapportion those, extra write-in seats from the housing ones to some of these contested colleges, that could, solve that problem of just having extra seats and hopefully get seats to people who actually really care about them.
Yeah, I think I understand your point. It's a good question. To preface what I'm going to say, the intention is not to decrease write-ins. That's not the intention at all. The intention, again, is to help with the increase in retention. But I think practically speaking, we have done actually exactly that in terms, if you look at the number going from 80 to 70, proportionally and percentage-wise, that does increase the college representations as far as from the off-campus, on-campus Corps of Cadets, because even though they stay the same, it is percentage-wise more. I think your question more so is why not keep it at 80 and just give those seats to them? And so I understand that. I don't necessarily think that solves the same issue. However, seeing as this is our last question and we are running out of time, overall, those are the goals. If that's how you think the goal is met, I'm happy to talk with you about it. But I do think that in theory, that does exist by the way that we've adjusted the 80 to the 70 number. Okay, thank you, Chair Banks. And that now concludes our period of question and answer, right on the nick of time. 10 seconds to spare. Thank you all for your questions. You have my cell phone number. If not, I'm happy to share it. Please reach out. In the meantime, it'll go to the Rules and Regulations Committee, and so we'll be happy to have more conversations once it's there as well. And with that, that will conclude our period of question and answer. And we will now enter, now it's going to be sent to the Rules and Regulations Committee. Okay, thank you guys. And with that, Okay, and I have one final piece for open session, so I'll recognize myself one further time, and then we have a lot more to get to, so I apologize, but this one shouldn't be too lengthy. But this one is entitled The Introduction of Summer Meetings Act, which would be SB 7218, and so I recognize myself for a period of 10 minutes, and it will not take that long, but this is also in the open session form if you'd like to follow along as I run through it. And so this really was something that I have been talking about with our advisors and others for quite some time. Other schools in the SEC, University of Florida is the most noted that have meetings year round. And it is something that I think we have been lacking on. As it mentions in the whereas is the university administration, the university as a whole works year round. Many students even stay here and have connections across campus, and there's no reason that the Student Senate should not also work year round to some extent. As the voice of the student body, we should ensure we're always working for our constituents who also take classes year round. So with that, I propose that, here we go, Article be amended to add the following section, which is entitled Summer Session. I will read through it. It's not extremely long. And then from there, we'll go ahead and move into questions and send it to committee. But it is that within 30 calendar days of the adjournment of the joint session meeting, the speaker would be required to send out to the Senate body what would be the schedule for the meetings. They'd be required to have one at least in the months of June, July, and August. So at least 3, and no more than every other week. So no more than on the pace that we have them during a normal semester. This would give the speaker the right to schedule that, but also IA a lot of rights with the speaker to weigh in on certain aspects. They will have leniency in terms of whether they want to do it in an in-person or an online format. And so they can attend meetings however they'd like or schedule them however they'd like. However, there does have to be a ability, because people are on internship or at home or whatever it looks like, for people to attend in an entirely online format, even if the meeting is being held in 144. And so it allows for leniency, but also allows for making sure everyone is accommodated, whether they're in College Station or not, recognizing it's during the summer. And so a summer session would be defined as a general body meeting that is held within the months of May after the completion of the spring semester, June, July, or August before the start of the fall semester. And they have all the rights and privileges of every other meeting, and they can also handle business for judicial court considerations, executive cabinet confirmations, or Senate elections if that needs to happen. And then they would also have leniency on some pieces of attendance, but also dress code. And then they would have leniency on what would be virtual guidelines, which can be set per IA. And so with that, you have it to read. We'll send it to committee, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time. Again, you have my phone number to reach out in the meantime. But with that, we'll move into a period of question and answer. Do I see any questions? Okay, wonderful. Seeing no questions, that will conclude our period of question and answer. We'll send that to the Rules and Regulations Committee. Wonderful. We will now move on to the remaining parts of open session. And I will begin by recognizing Chair Berger. Chair Berger, did you have a piece of legislation for open session? And
yes, I do. Hold on. I'm going to step out real quick. It's a handful of Zoom calls going on in the same living room at the same time. So I will start with SB 7220. It's an Absence Policy Revision Act. You can find it in the open session folder. And so just to quickly summarize that, this is something that, we found that there's a very evident lack of attendance, especially something that we saw before the Zoom meeting started with this body. And that's partially due in part to the retention that we've talked about earlier, and then partially due in the fact that it's fairly easy to miss meetings. And so something that you'll see with this piece is that essentially it identifies these things as issues. It identifies that attendance is something that could be a lot better within this body. And then also it acknowledges the fact that regardless of the designation of your absence, whether it's excused or unexcused, the true reality of the matter is you are elected by the student body to be in Colbus 144 or to be on this Zoom call and working on behalf of the student body. The issue that we see is that if you're not in the room, regardless of what that reason might be that you're not in the room, the work's not getting done. The student body isn't being heard from this point of view that you were elected to bring into the room. And so with that, what this does is it amends the code. It amends Title 3, Chapter 1A, Article 4, Section 6, which is the Student Senate's absence policy, and it actually strikes out the six excused absences, or 6 unexcused absences, excuse me, and replaces it with 7 unexcused absences and a grand total of 11 absences, excused or unexcused. And so the reasoning for that. 6 kind of just encourages you to skip a roll call at an individual meeting, because 6 absences is 3 meetings worth of roll calls. I understand if you're going to miss 3 meetings, it happens. Life happens. You're not going to be able to make every single Wednesday work. So we're increasing that to 7 to give you the ability to actually miss 3 meetings. It gives you the ability to miss 3 meetings. Then with that, we also bumped up the total to 11. So before that you would get kicked out for receiving. The reason for this is, like I said, whether you whether you have 11 if meetings, I can understand if you have a class on Wednesdays, or you happen to have a test every now and then, but the reality is we need you in the room. And so that's what this is aimed at. That's what this is hoping to do. And so with that, happy to open this up to questions, and do know that it will come back up for discussion at our next meeting.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Chair Berger. We'll now begin a period of question and answer for 5 minutes. Do I see any questions? Yes. Okay, we'll start with Senator Cabrera. If I can type, that'd be easier. Okay, wonderful. You're unmuted.
Okay, so I have a hypothetical question situation. So what will happen to somebody I mean, some of you, well, most of you know about my case last semester that fortunately I got stuck somewhere else, so I couldn't be there. So what will that mean? That I will just get the person will just get kicked out and considered an absence and not able to run again. So can you try to make a possible solution to that situation? What would be your answer?
Yeah, so we actually do have a solution to that situation in place. As harsh as it might sound, you have the option of resignation at any point in time. And so as unfortunate you do have the aspirations to come back in the room, which you can do, is you can resign, and resignations in Student Senate are no questions asked. So you type up a formal resignation, you send it into the speaker, and you're out of the body, but you have the ability to come back either in the next election cycle, or you could be appointed point in the semester, and we're just appointing to fill vacancies. You are welcome to apply through that route. So resignation doesn't have the same effect as an absence out. And so my personal opinion, I know a handful of you that I have discussed this with,
well, I don't hear you.
Yeah, Senator Cabrera, I think Evan cut out for us. Let's see. Yeah, if you could try a different location. We heard about every other thing. We'll give him a second just to see if he can fix that. Senator Cabrera, thanks for your patience. Here we got. All right. In the meantime, let's see. Chair Berger, if you can hear us, feel free to either send me a text or put it in the chat that you would like to come back on. In the meantime, it's okay if not, but he mentioned your name, Chair Spur, if you'd want to answer questions. If not, we can reserve it for Evan. It's up to you. I unmuted you, Hannah.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer questions.
Okay, do you, David, go ahead and repeat your question if you would for Chair Spur. Or if he didn't, if he addressed.
Do you hear the question, or do you want me to repeat it again, or?
No, I heard your question. So like Evan said, resignation is an option. Ultimately, like we don't want to see senators' absence out because then you can't run again. And if you resign, you are able to run again in the immediate next session. But if you are gone for an extended period of time, like say like David, you were gone the whole semester, we're so glad to have you back. But like if someone's going to be gone for the entire spring semester, like somebody can come in and fill that role and have that active voice and have that active representation. Whereas like if you just keep accruing excused absences, we don't really have somebody filling that role in the room.
Perfect, thank you. Chair Berger, I see that you're inside. I've unmuted you. I think Hannah answered the question, but if you want to add anything, if not, we'll open up to other questions.
No, I think between what I got out and what Hannah got out, we got it pretty well answered.
Perfect, I agree. Okay, any further questions for our presenter?
No, I think no question.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Senator Cabrera. And seeing no further questions, this will also be sent to the Rules and Regulations Committee. Thanks so much. Chair Berger, you still have, you're still unmuted, and I believe you said you had one further piece?
Yes, I also have SB 7220. It is the Comprehensive SGA Code Revisions Act.
Okay, wonderful. And do I see any seconds for this? Okay, there we go. Seeing a number of seconds, Chair Berger, you have 10 minutes beginning at howdy.
Chair Berger, Rules and Regulations. Howdy, Senate. So with this piece, this is some kind of, you know, we go through code each year, try to get through it with a fine-tooth comb, and really just see where we can find any discrepancies and issues that need to be fixed. And these are the things that kind of get thrown in here all at once in an omnibus. So I do encourage you to read through this as there is a handful to it. But quick summary, the only major thing is that what we have found is that a handful of rules and regulations chairs in the past have unfortunately lost some pieces of legislation without putting them into the code. And so we've been able to go back as far as 3 years and get a lot of that taken care of. But something that is really tough for us is, you know, obviously this incoming session is the 73rd session of the Student Senate. That means there have been 73 sessions worth of information that potentially could have been lost at any point in time. And really and truly the only way, there's only two ways to fix that. One way would be to completely rewrite the code starting at session 1. And this was something that I discussed with Megan Hahn, the 73rd session Rules and Regulations Chair, and a handful of individuals in this body, a lot of my committee, and then a lot of individuals on IA as well. And something that we really didn't think was feasible was starting back year 1 and rewriting this code. What we thought made the most sense is to go ahead and say, the code is not in a bad place right now. So the biggest thing we're going to do with this omnibus revision is that we are going to go ahead and we're going to nullify anything that was added to the code prior to the 70th session of Student Senate. So anything 69th session or earlier, all of those things which have been lost. We're not nullifying everything, just anything which has been lost over the years and not yet added to the code, that's going to be nullified. Now, that's not to say that if somebody does want to do the research independently and bring those pieces of legislation back, that they can't come before the body. They can be recognized before the body again in that sense. So all it's going to do is say, for now, we're not going to make it mandatory that the Rules and Regulations Chair go back and really just go through every single session one at a time and rewrite the code. We're just going to allow them to say, we're going to fix everything that was lost in 70, 71, and then keep in everything that's been added in 72. And then the hope is that with that in mind, we'll be able to fix everything each yearly code revision. And so it's still going to give us the opportunity, obviously, just as always, to ensure that it's a good, efficient, and functioning document. And this is just going to kind of clear up any confusion of things that might be missing in the past. Really, everything further than that is just to kind of clarify some things. So let it be further enacted too is really all it's doing is clarifying that we will have a period of debate during officer elections if it's requested by any member of the Senate. So it's just saying that it's clarifying that language of a period of debate can be requested to a period of debate will occur if requested. And that takes out a handful of things which have been removed in the past that might get nullified by that previous levy enacted statements, just to ensure that these things which are out of date do get taken out, and these things which are no longer in practice get taken out of the code. And then also that we make sure we're updating our language to the most current and also the most inclusive. And so then the rest of it is just really to clarify a lot of the things that have been left out. That they're really not super huge things. It's just administratively, we really wanted to go ahead and clarify that, you know, the definition of Texas A&M University, or a lot of it aligns ourselves with some of the acts passed previously in this session. So now we have a process where senators are all confirmed, but not all senators are elected. So it's just, like I said, adding in that inclusive language. And then it is striking out some things that are out of date, like I said before. And really, that's all that this is doing is modernizing the code, catching us up with things that we've passed this session, and also taking out things that are no longer in practice. And that I'd be glad to open this up to questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair Berger. Okay, we're going to open up for a period of question and answer for 5 minutes. Do I see any questions for our presenter? Alrighty. Okay, seeing none, this will also be sent to your committee, the Rules and Regulations Committee. Thank you.
Yigs.
Okay, wonderful. I believe we had, okay, John Ryan, you will be recognized next. Before that, I believe we had Senator McHugh. Did you have a piece for open session?
I did. So it is in the open session folder on the drive. If you want to go ahead and pull that up, it is called the Tate A. Banks Aggie Core Values Exemplification Award Act. So it's quite a mouthful here. But basically what this act is doing is establishing the Core Values Committee as a permanent subcommittee within the Community Relations Committee. So they'll be underneath that committee, and that'll be kind of managed by the CR chair going forward. But basically, we want to continue the award that we've established this year and build on it and grow it out as we go forward here. And so this piece of legislation will establish it. We'll make sure it's run. We'll make sure it's upkept. The cool thing about naming it after Tate, and you're gonna have to let me go pop off here for a second, but the cool thing about naming it after Tate is that Tate has been a staple of Senate for a very long time, and this is, you know, getting to be his last meeting here pretty soon once joint session rolls around. And I know we're all gonna very much so miss Tate, and I know he's done a lot for Senate, whether it was creating the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, working on Senate Rule 7, or a host of other things. He's done a butt ton, and I know a lot of us who are sitting here on this call can owe the mentorship and the initial knowledge we got coming into Senate to Tate, as well as that growth that we've felt along the way. And so that's the thought process behind naming this award after Tate, to recognize the fact that he's given so much time, so much energy, and so much effort to Senate. And we just want to recognize that. I know personally, Tate took me under his wing this last year and has brought me into Senate and has made me feel like a member of the Senate family. That's something that has gone a long way for me, not to get all sappy here. But Tate's a phenomenal guy, and this naming this award after him is a no-brainer in my opinion. But yeah, the logistics of the award are that it's going to be placed under the CR committee. So the CR chair will be picking the chair along with IA, And then the chair of the core values subcommittee, it won't be an ad hoc committee anymore since it's going to be permanently established. So that chair will then be able to pick his membership. That membership will be open through all of Senate. And so that's something that is pretty simple and straightforward as far as how the committee is being set up. But that's everything that I have here. Tate, I'm glad I'm making you cry here because I know I'm on the verge of tears as well as I sit here and talk about you. So I'm going to shut up and let questions happen.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator McHugh. We will now open it up to a period of question and answer for 2 minutes. If I see any questions. Okay, seeing no questions, considering this is an act, we'll also send it to the Rules and Regulations Committee. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Senator McHugh. I believe Senator John Ryan Rodriguez had a piece. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, please take the title.
Right. The title of it is SR 72 yada yada yada, March 3rd, 2020 Silver Tabs Resolution.
Okay, wonderful. Do I see any seconds for this? Okay, a number of seconds. You will have 10 minutes beginning at Howdy.
All right, howdy, Senate. It's been awesome getting the chance to do Silver Tabs resolutions for the school year. Though we don't want to see Silver Tabs during our time, getting a chance to remember those that we remember at Silver Tabs via resolution. I think it's always a privilege, but also a responsibility for us to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and read March's resolution. It reads, Silver Tabs is a sacred time-honored tradition of Texas A&M University that serves as one of the final tributes that the student body makes to students who have passed during the months leading up to the service. And the solemn tradition was established in 1898 to commemorate the life of Lawrence Sullivan Ross and has been preserved for over a century to pay homage to those we have lost since. And as long as Texas A&M University continues to serve and educate those who walk our campus, Silver Tabs will remain as a staple of the Aggie way of life. Therefore, let it be resolved, the Texas A&M University Student Senate recognizes and commends those who took time on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020 to honor the members of our Aggie family we have lost, as well as all who have been, are, and will be involved with the present preservation and regular facilitation of Silver Tabs. And the Texas A&M University Student Senate gives its sincerest condolences to the families and friends of Cameron Christopher McNeff, Roel Israel Prado, and Nicholas Joseph King, who were honored at Silver Tabs held on March 3rd, 2020. And the Texas A&M University Student Senate joins the rest of the student body in celebrating the lives of those fallen Aggies this past month. And a copy of this resolution be sent to Michael Gillette, Student Body President, Traditions Council, and the Battalion. I yield my time to the floor.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. We'll now move into a period of question and answer for 5 minutes. Do I see any questions for our presenter? Okay, seeing no questions, that will conclude our period of question and answer, and we'll move into a period of debate. Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. And with that, we will begin with a period of debate against. If you have any debate against SR 7257, please type against in the chat function. Okay, seeing no debate against, the period of debate is one-sided and has now closed. Move into a period of voting by unanimous consent on SR 7257, the March 3rd, 2020 Silver Tabs resolution. If you have an objection, please type objection in the chat function. Okay, seeing no objection, SR 7257, the March 3rd, 2020 Silver Tabs resolution passes by unanimous consent. Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. And with that, I believe Senator Trosclair had a piece. You have been unmuted, or there you are.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My legislation is entitled Spring Athletics Resolution, a resolution expressing support of the NCAA eligibility extension for spring athletes.
Okay, wonderful. Do I see any seconds? Senator Trusclair, you have Senator Tomlinson and myself. Go ahead. You have 10 minutes starting at Howdy.
Howdy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just going to go ahead and start reading from Whereas 1. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the NCAA, National Collegiate Athletic Association, has canceled the remaining winter and spring NCAA championships, including track and field, baseball, softball, golf, and tennis. Student athletes who compete in the spring would have lost a competition season of sports participation, dramatically affecting their collegiate athletic career. According to the NCAA, Division I rules limit student athletes to 4 seasons of competition in a 5-year period. The NCAA's Division I Council met on 3/31/20, voted to allow schools to provide spring sports student athletes, in addition, open season competition with an extension of their eligibility period. Division I Council will permit schools to self-apply 1-year extension of eligibility for spring sports student athletes, effectively extending each student's 5-year clock by a year. Let it further be resolved, Texas A&M Student Senate appreciates the NCAA ensuring our spring athletes will not be penalized due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Let it furthermore be resolved, the Texas A&M Student Senate looks forward to seeing our athletes on the field and court next spring semester. And let it further be resolved 3, a copy of this resolution be sent to President Young, Dr. Pugh, the athletic director, Ross Bjork, the president of the 12th Man Foundation, and then the heads of all the athletic events in the spring, as well as the battalion.
Okay, wonderful. Do you open up for questions? Perfect.
Yes,
We'll move into a 5-minute period of question and answer, beginning with Senator Cabrera. You have been unmuted.
Senator Cabrera, Liberal Caucus. So, how many sports teams do you speak, Mr. Trusclair?
The number of sports that are affected, that's everything from track and field, baseball to softball, golf, and tennis. So everything that happens in the spring semester.
Go ahead and follow up if you'd like, Senator Cabrera.
Okay, because I was curious, because I know, for example, my rugby team was also affected for what's going on with the whole coronavirus. So I was just surprised that, I don't know, you didn't mention them. So I was curious about it.
It's my understanding that, are you talking about the club rugby team? Because I don't believe Texas A&M has a NCAA Division I rugby team.
Okay, it's just based on...
Yeah, these are for Division I student athletes that are on scholarship. And the reason this is so important is you only have 5 years and then 4 seasons of eligibility. So if you lose a season, that's really bad. That hurts your career. So the important part is they get that season back.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cabrera. Okay, wonderful. Do you have any further questions for Senator Trusclair? All right, seeing none, thank you, Senator Trusclair. We will now move into a period of debate on what is now SR 7258. Do I see any debate against this resolution? And if so, please type debate against, in the chat function. Okay, we will recognize Chair Rodriguez for 2.5 minutes, starting at Howdy. You have been unmuted.
Howdy. I'd like to add myself as a sponsor and anybody else that would like to onto this resolution.
Wonderful. Seeing seconds coming in the chat function, Chair Rodriguez, thank you for your motion. Do we have any objections to this motion? If so, please type objection in the chat function. Okay. Seeing no objection, Chair Rodriguez, your motion to add yourself and anyone else who would like to be added as a sponsor passes by unanimous consent. As a reminder, please use the form in the 70 seconds Google Drive. Thank you. You have the floor in debate against still.
I yield my time to the floor.
Great, wonderful, thank you. The floor has been yielded to, and with that, move into a period of debate for the resolution as a whole. Do I see any debate for? Okay, seeing none, the period of debate is one-sided and the period of debate has now closed. Moving to a period of voting on SR 7258, the Spring Athletes Resolution. Do I see any objections to the resolution as a whole? Okay, seeing no objections, SR 7258, the Spring Athletes Resolution, passes by unanimous consent. Thank you, Senator Trusclair. All right, I believe Senator Price had a piece. Senator Price, you've been unmuted.
Howdy, Sid. I have a resolution, the Zoom gratitude resolution.
Okay, wonderful. Do I see any seconds for Senator Price's resolution? Thanks. I will actually second it right here. It's a great piece. I appreciate you writing it. I see a lot of fantastic names from the Office of Academic Innovation. So you have the floor and you have 10 minutes starting at Howdy.
All right. So first off, thank everyone for sponsoring it in advance. So as I sort of wrote in the email and outlined at the start, the intent behind this resolution was really just to recognize everybody that laid the foundation for us to kind of move into this online only sort of atmosphere. And I'll read through everything, but before that, I wanted to address a couple things. It's been brought to my attention that Zoom has recently been named in a lawsuit for sharing data with Facebook or this, that, and the other. That lawsuit is still ongoing. And I think Zoom has been under increased scrutiny for their overall security of their system. But given that, I understand any cause for concern for naming Zoom. So I understand that cause for concern. But I would just say that the intent is still just to thank those members that sort of set up the system for moving to online only. And a couple things I changed since that first email. I added the provost in the let it be further resolved to. I cleaned up some of the language to make it more formal and the let it further be resolved for. And with that, I'll go ahead and read the resolution. So Zoom gratitude resolution, a resolution for the Student Government Association to formally thank the Office of Academic Innovation, Provost IT Office, Provost Communications Team, and the Division of IT for their leadership, foresight, and aid in implementing Zoom for the Texas A&M University system. Whereas 1, Zoom is a video and web conferencing service used to, among other things, host university lectures digitally, whereas 2, midway through 2019, the Office of Academic Innovation oversaw and championed the selection and transition of the Texas A&M University system from Cisco WebEx to Zoom, with the understanding that Zoom is easier and more intuitive to use, works better in low bandwidth settings and circumstances, and as an organization is exceptional in their dialogue with the university. And whereas 3, over the last month, the Office of Academic Innovation, Provost IT Office, Provost Communications Team, and the Division of IT have worked relentlessly to carry and extend this transition into the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 and resulting Texas A&M adaptation to primary online only university and system. And whereas 4, this is no small feat as the Texas A&M University system is home to over 69,000 active students, only 16,000 of which had previously claimed their university provided Zoom licenses prior to the widespread outbreak of COVID-19. Roughly 4,000 faculty members, 7,000 staff members, 35,000 graduate assistants, and 85,000 student employees. And whereas 5, further complicating this accelerated adoption, the aforementioned stakeholders wield varying and diverse degrees of digital conference familiarity. And whereas 6, by already having the Zoom infrastructure prior to the outbreak of COVID-19, committees and decision makers within the A&M University system were able to act swiftly in their determination to transition to online only as we traverse these challenging times. And whereas 7, due to the previous clause, the offices, committees, and individuals mentioned and referenced in this resolution will most certainly prove to have helped flatten the curve and save or improve the lives of the extended Aggie and Brazos County families. Therefore, let it be resolved, 1, the Student Government Association would like to provide a formal thank you to the Office of Academic Innovation, Provost IT Office, Provost Communications Team, and the Division of IT, and anyone and everyone else involved in either 1, the transition to, or 2, maintenance of the Texas A&M University Zoom system, and let it be further resolved, 2, the Student Government Association would like to go further and thank individuals and teams referenced in the aforementioned clause, Dr. Jocelyn Widmer, Assistant Provost for Academic Innovation, and her 15-member team for their championing efforts in the transition to Zoom, Kyle Page, IT Director, Dr. Juan Garza, Assistant Vice President and Director of IT Academic Services, and the 70-plus member team within the Provost IT Office for their leadership, administration of Zoom accounts, and support. Tamara Garza, Creative Manager for the Office of Provost, for her work designing and curating A&M's tamu.zoom.us, keeplearning.tamu.edu, and keepteaching.tamu.edu web pages and social media assets. The Division of IT and the staff of Help Desk Central for all of their support and steadfast service to the university during the COVID-19 crisis. And finally, Provost and Executive Director, Dr. Carol Fierke, and her extended office team for their course setting in this time. And let it further be resolved, 3, the Student Government Association encourages students to reference the webpage keeplearning.tamu.edu or provost.tamu.edu/keeplearning, recently set up by the Office of the Provost with the intent to guide students through this evolving period of education. And let it be further resolved, 4, the Student Government Association further encourages students to claim their university-provided Zoom licenses by signing into Zoom through the Sign In with SSO selection, entering tamu.zoom.us, and logging in through the Howdy portal, as Zoom can be used for a variety of purposes outside of lectures, such as, but not limited to, hosting virtual study sessions, holding organizational meetings, and video conferencing with loved ones in these isolated times. And let it further resolve, 5, finally, the Student Government Association encouraged students to follow the Office of Academic Innovation on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at TAMU_innovation. And let it further resolve, 6, a copy of this resolution should be sent to the Office of Academic Innovation, Provost IT Office, Tamara Garza, Division of IT and Help Desk Central, Office of the Provost, Michael Young, President of Texas A&M University, and the battalion at the following addresses.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Senator Price. Do you have any questions for our presenter? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We will now move into a period of debate on what will be SR 7259. Do we have any debate against this resolution? Okay, seeing no debate against, the period of debate is one-sided and has now officially closed. With that, we'll move into a period of voting via unanimous consent. Do I see any objections to SR 7259? If so, type objection in the chat function. Okay, seeing no objection, then SR 7259, the Zoom Gratitude Resolution, passes via unanimous consent. Thank you, Senator Price. All right. Do we have any further pieces of legislation for open session? If so, please make yourself noted in the chat function. Okay. Then to my understanding, that is all we have for open session. And with that, that now concludes our period of open session, and we'll begin our period of committee reports. We will begin with, excuse me, Pro Temp Hall. Connor, I'm going to unmute you. Would you like to do your committee report?
Oh, what? In San Antonio?
Connor, you're unmuted. Okay. That is a trend today. We're having some technical difficulties. I'll follow up with Connor, but for now, let's go ahead and turn to Chair Berger. Evan, would you like to do a committee report?
Yes. So Chair Berger, Rules and Regulations. Howdy, Senate. So sorry, I was actually waiting for a response to realize you're all muted. Just a handful of things. I know a lot got sent to my committee this evening, and so with that, we had planned already. My committee is going to have 2 committee meetings in the 2 weeks leading up to our next Senate meeting, and so with that, plan for one to be this coming Wednesday, and then the next to be either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of the next meeting, and it'll be, if it's Wednesday, it'll be the morning of. If y'all would like to come to those meetings, know that I will be, they will be via Zoom, and I will be sending out the Zoom link for those meetings to the Senate email list, so you will have some prior notice on it, and you will be able to join in if you'd like. Know that the Rules and Regs Committee members are the only ones who actually will be voting on the different amendments we will be making to things, but we'd love to hear your opinions, your ideas, and suggestions. And then beyond that, unfortunately, we still can't do subco events. It'll be in discussions with the next subco chair to see if we could maybe do some throwback reunions. We'll see. But with that, that's all that I really have. So if there are any questions, open them up for that now.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Berger. Do you have any questions for our presenter? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much. We will move forward and recognize Chair Clarissa Rodriguez. All right, go ahead.
Howdy, Senate Chair Rodriguez, Diversity and Inclusion. So just a couple of things. We will be having a Zoom committee meeting this coming weekend, so be ready for that. I'm excited to see y'all's faces again. I know it's been a while, but we're going to get through this together, and we'll get that meeting going. I do have a couple of pieces that I do want to pass before our next meeting, so be ready for that. We're going to do a PETA for sure, and then if you guys have any more ideas, bring it to committee. I'm excited to see what you guys have. Also, I've been getting a lot of emails from the Department of Multicultural Services and a different organization around campus that are having a lot of virtual cultural events. So if you guys are interested, let me know. There's a lot of cool things that are going around on campus through Zoom. So I feel like that's the new normality. So if you have any questions, let me know. I can send you the link. There's a lot of cool things that I'm going to be tuning into, hopefully to see a lot of new faces and learn a lot of new things as well. But definitely stay safe. Be with your families, your loved ones, text your friends every day, and make sure they're all right. This is a tough time for not only our nation, but for the world. So definitely be watching the news. And if you guys need anything, just let me know. I'm here for you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. Do you have any questions for her? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much. All right, we will now recognize Chair Newman. You have been unmuted.
All right, howdy, Senate. For me, just looking forward to getting that Finance Reform Act through at the next meeting. So if you have any ideas on that, I guess tune into Chair Berger's Rules and Regs meeting, because it's out of my hands now. But I just want to encourage everyone to continue following all of the CDC guidelines, state of Texas guidelines. If you're in Texas or whatever state you're in, follow those guidelines, please. Let's flatten the curve. Also, if you're in or around College Station, go outside. It feels wonderful. It's an amazing evening, so enjoy the outdoors. All right, that's all I got.
Perfect. Thank you, Connor. Any questions for Chair Newman? All righty, seeing none, thanks so much. All right, we'll now recognize Chair Spur. All right, Chair Spur, you have been, or are being unmuted. Let's see. There you go.
Howdy, Senate. Chair Spur, Constituency Affairs. I hope everybody is hanging in there. I know this is a very difficult time for a lot of people. I hope you all have something to keep you busy and to keep your spirits up. I know that that's really important this time. Right now for Constituency Affairs, I'm working on a lot. Right now, I'm kind of in the process of finishing up constituency affairs, moving over to pro tem. But with constituency affairs, we just kicked off our new Instagram story series today for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Please check that out. Please let me know if you want those graphics, to share those graphics on your own personal Instagram story. We're also going to continue on with recognizing our senators. If a few of you were on Instagram yesterday, we did a little interaction thing. I basically did it to see kind of how well we were getting with social media interaction. And so with the tag a senator that you miss, we had the highest interaction on our account that we've ever had. So that's something really big to celebrate. We had over 120 interactions with each of our stories that went up yesterday, which is fantastic. We usually get about 50 to 60. So I'm going to try to do more interactions with social media because that's the best way we can reach our constituents right now. I've been trying to keep up more with the Twitter as well. Spring Ag Input is in the works. I am doing a Zoom meeting sometime next week so that those that are interested in running for constituency affairs can watch me make Ag Input and watch the creative process and kind of see how I've formatted it, see what changes they want to make, ask questions, because it's hard to put into a transition doc. If you're in the 73rd and you're considering running for constituency affairs, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Spring Ag Input is going to encompass a lot of things. We're going to encompass Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Disabilities Awareness Month, COVID, and then a recap on resources with COVID. So what resources are available to you, where and when, with the shelter in place and everything like that. I know I'm home up in North Dallas, but we do have the shelter in place here. But resources are different, obviously, that I'm not on campus. So I'm trying to team together with a lot of different people to bring this together to send out hopefully right after Easter. I think that's about it. This is kind of the last tail bit for me is constituency affairs. It's a very bittersweet end, but I'm really excited for this last month, really trying to hit the end with a good stick and finish. I was a gymnast for a while, so just trying to make sure that we're not fading out, we're ending strong. But with that, I think I yield my time to any questions.
Okay, thank you, Chair Spur. Do you have any questions for her? All right, we'll recognize Senator Marufo. Let's see. All right, go ahead.
So, or Senator Marufo, Liberal Arts Caucus, Chair Spur, if it's my understanding, you run our social media as well, and I just wanted to ask, April is, like you said, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and it's also a PETA Heritage Month. If you had any things like in the plans for maybe putting something on the Instagram with that, and if so, and if not, if I could become involved with that. And I could also just text you that as well, but.
Yeah, absolutely. April is, like I said, there's lots going on in April, but I will admit, I was not aware, but I would love to include that with what we post on social media. I want to get more inclusive with what's on social media. I only post what I have time to create on Canva and what I know of and what's sent to me. So we have open forum things, that's sent to me by Eric or Dylan. But yes, please text me, please reach out. We will work on that together and get something created to put up on social media to celebrate that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing it to my attention.
Thank you. Okay, do you have any further questions for Chair Spur? All righty. Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now recognize, Senator John Ryan Rodriguez, or Chair John Ryan Rodriguez. Go ahead.
Howdy, Senate.
Howdy.
Not too much to report from LR. Like last meeting, we're wrapping up the year, so at this point, it's just looking forward to see what the 73rd would like to have some help with. If you are going to be in Senate in the 73rd and want to pref LR, if you want to pref LR, by all means, talk to me and we can see what y'all want to do. And this coming year, we'll talk about it and see how I can be a resource for you. I'd like to mention that only one person again has only talked to me about doing or running for LR chair. So if you're interested as well, let me know. Again, it's just important talking to your predecessor before you go into a position. So there's that. Try to keep Senate lively tonight with some fun backgrounds. Hope y'all enjoyed them. Evan or Chair Berg, thanks for your fun backgrounds. Those were good. But besides that, are there any questions? I yield my time to questions. Yield the floor to questions.
All right, thank you, Chair Rodriguez. Do you have any questions for him? All righty, seeing none, thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
We will now recognize Chair Rebioso. Gilberto, you have been unmuted.
Howdy, Senate. No big updates on my end. Again, just kind of like to reiterate what John Ryan was saying. For those interested in running for community relations, I know a few of you have reached out to me. If anybody else is interested, please feel free to reach out. I'm I'm open to answering any questions and giving you advice and tips. But besides that, I'm good on updates.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much. Do you have any questions for Chair Rebioso? Excuse me. Okay. Seeing none, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, we will now recognize Chair McGill. Technical. Okay, let's go ahead and recognize Chair Banks. You've been unmuted.
Howdy, everybody. So a few big projects that we're trying to close out the year with academic affairs. Still working on that accountability portal. Hopefully we'll have movement on that for the next meeting for y'all. The big thing that happened in the past week was a project I'm working on with Subcommittee Chair Rowan and Senator Jeffries. It was Jeffries' idea of getting mental health resources listed on syllabi. I think this year has been really eye-opening for me personally, and probably for y'all, a lot of you, just kind of highlighting a lot of the mental health problems on campus. And especially, given what we're going through right now, I'm sure that a lot of people's psyches are kind of suffering. So Senator Jeffries reached out to CAPS, the Counseling Services, and got the verbiage they would like to have listed on syllabi. I sent that over to the Provost's office recently. They got back to me. There's another point of contact I need to work with to get those resources listed on syllabi. So I'm going to be working on those in the coming weeks, and hopefully I'll have good news for you all by next meeting. Aside from that, stay safe. Congratulations to all the senators in the 73rd and the folks who won chair positions in the 73rd. So that's Senator McHugh, Chair Spur, Senator Hine, and John Carter Teague. Congratulations to y'all. Good luck to anybody who's running for a position in the 73rd. And if anybody would like to run for academic affairs or any other chair, really feel free to reach out to me. I've ran for a lot of those, and I've seen a lot of them ran for, so I'm more than happy to give advice for that. And with that, I'll yield my time to questions.
Awesome. All right. Any questions for Chair Banks? Seeing none, thanks so much. All right, we will begin. Well, that will conclude our period of committee reports, and we'll begin our period of executive reports, beginning with our Chief Justice. Give me a second. Shafali, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. Howdy, everyone. Just to reiterate what's been said a lot, just keep taking care of yourself, keep watching out for those you care about. This is a time when it all comes down to us being there for each other. So I can't emphasize that anymore. Also, as Vice Chief Justice McIntosh said at the last meeting, that the court is maintaining all of its operations as normal, just through Zoom now. So please feel free to reach out to us. You can find all the information on the SJ's website or the J-Court's website. Whatever you need, we're always there. That kind of transitions into the last thing that I want to kind of touch on is, first, thank y'all for hearing our act today. It seems like a very trivial thing, but I cannot emphasize more how detrimental it can be, not only to SGA, but to the organization itself. I mean, outside of our purpose and being an SGA, we are an organization that needs to build from the inside out. We can't really do what we do unless we have those relationships, those bonds, those friendships, and we take care of all of our internal operations as well. And so not having justices really delays all of it. We are the third branch of the Student Government Association, and our sole purpose will always be to serve the Student Government Association and the student body. But in order to do that, we need people to do that. Our purpose becomes mute at that point. So thank you all once again, and I'm really looking forward to what comes next with that. But if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. That being said, I'm done.
All right, thank you so much. Do you have any questions for our Chief Justice? Okay, we'll recognize Senator Cabrera very quickly. Give me one moment. You have been unmuted.
Senator Cabrera, Liberal Caucus. Well, I just want to say that I appreciate the whole thing that's going on in the Supreme Court, and that it's a really important stuff. So thank you. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for investing in us.
Wonderful. All right, well, seeing no further questions, thank you so much for following.
Thank you.
All right, I will very quickly recognize myself for the final executive report. So if a number of chairs are still on the call, if you have not yet submitted your transition documents to me, please do that. I want to ensure that the next group of internal affairs members for the 73rd session can get going as quickly as they'd like to. So please send that my way if you haven't already. And then obviously a number of acts and bills were presented today for first reading. So very generally, please do touch base with either Evans, who's in his committee, touch base with the bill authors, maybe the sponsors, but ensure that you are talking to them and asking questions, bringing things up before they come up for second reading again. And that includes the two pieces that obviously I had a hand in bringing forward. One of them is obviously revolving around the judicial court, which we spent hours on, and so everything always can have more work, but we appreciate you hearing us out on that. Please, if you have anything for either one of those two pieces, reach out. If you have my phone number, please feel free to text or call. If not, I'm happy to provide that for you. But let's make sure we're trying to do all that before it comes back up for second reading and vote. But with that being said, I hope that the general theme that you get from everything that Chair Berger is doing, that I'm doing, that acts have been brought up from Chair Newman and everyone in between, you can get the sense that although we are leaving, the intention is to leave the Student Senate in the best possible position to be impactful, to be powerful, and to ultimately serve the students in the best way possible. And that is, I believe, being done by these pieces of legislation. And so, again, I've spent now 3 sessions in this body, and so I have the utmost respect for it and want to ensure that we are holding it to the highest of standards. And so let's talk about it if you have questions or concerns. But beyond that, as was mentioned by basically everybody else, very interesting times that we're living in. This is now our second official 72nd meeting. And so I thank you for your continued flexibility and engagement on this. I think that above all else, make sure you're taking care of yourself, your schoolwork. I know from firsthand experience, it's very difficult to try and do everything from one place. And so make sure you're setting schedules, taking time out of the day to, like was mentioned, go enjoy the outside, which you can still do if you go to the park or something. So with that, that's all I have for you guys. I appreciate your engagement. We have 2 more meetings, including joint sessions. So try and take advantage of that. Try and be engaged as you are tonight. So with that, I'm open to any questions you might have. Okay, wonderful. Seeing no questions, that will conclude our period of executive reports. We will move into a period of closing roll call, which again is on the Google form on the 70 seconds Google Drive under the e-meeting resources tab, excuse me. So we do not need to give time during the meeting for that. If you have not done so, please complete that form before the end of this evening, and it will be closed after that. If you've already done that, thank you. If not, please do it before the end of the meeting. I see a question, Senator Cabrera. Is this a point of information? Okay, seeing that it's a point of information, before we close it out, never hurts to have one more. Go ahead.
Well, I'm confused. So I'm supposed to just fill it out once, or do I do it twice, or?
Yeah, that's right. If you've done it once, you're good to go. If not, please do it before the end of the evening.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that. I appreciate it. And then with that, we will now adjourn. I appreciate your time and engagement tonight. Have a good evening. Wishing you all some health and safety ahead. Thanks.